Hey guys, I am making this tutorial in response to a question in a mentoring group I'm in. And the question was how to use SmartREKT to create 3 individual text boxes specific to each line's width. So if you've never used SmartREKT, this is what it does. Okay, so it's really cool. It automatically sizes a text box to the specific dimensions of your text, but it doesn't scale to the width of each line. So the question was, how do we set that up? So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to start by creating 3 new lines of text. Now you'll see our anchor point is already on the bottom left of our first line. So I'm going to Control D, or I believe Command D on the Mac, and I'm going to actually type the same text. So if I solo this, you can see I've typed the first line. Oops. And I typed the same line just so we can try to match up the same spacing we originally had. Right there, it looks pretty good. So if I solo these top 3, you can see we now have the same line. So I'm going to call this, I'm going to hit enter to change the layer name, line 1, line 2, and line 3. All right, but obviously we want to make this responsive so that when this text changes, each one of these lines changes as well. So I'm going to hit enter on this one as well and call this input text. So I'm going to come down to the source text of line 1, and I'm going to alt click. And I'm going to pick whip our input text, and then I'm going to type dot text dot source text dot split. And so what this is going to do is this is now going to look at the source text of our input text, and then it is going to split it. And we have to tell it where to split it. So in parentheses, I'm going to type in quotations \R, and that's going to look for returns. So if we put a space in here, it would look to separate our input text at each space. But now it's going to look for each time we've hit the return key. And since this is line 1, we want to pull out the first line of text. So I'm going to type bracket and then 0. So the split command has created what I believe is called an array. And arrays start with 0. So 0 is actually going to pull out the first line of text from our input text. So if I click off here, you'll see nothing changed because we already had typed out that text. But if I type test in line 1, you'll see that it now stays the same. And then maybe I'll actually just type out line 1, line 2, and line 3. And I'm going to solo these 3. Okay. So I'm going to copy and paste this, and then I'm going to come down to the source text of line 2, alt click, and change this to 1. So now we're pulling the second line of text in. And I'm going to do the same thing to line 3, and we'll pull the third line of text in by pulling the 2 value from our array. Okay, so now we have 3 individual lines of text. So we're going to use SmartREKT to create individual text boxes for each one of these. So I'm going to turn on auto size expressions, and then I believe I should be able to click anywhere. So we're going to click right here in the center, and we make one for that. We'll click line 2. make one for that, line 3, and make one for that. Now we want these boxes to be touching each other. So I'm actually going to turn off line 1, line 2, and line 3 of text. And I'm going to unsolo these as well. So now we'll use our original input text on the top, and then we'll continue to see these line 1, line 2, line 3 SmartREKTs. And I think we want to make a border of about 40 on each of these. So I'm going to type 40. So what this is doing is creating a margin around the text so that everything isn't right up to the line of text. So we'll make these all 40, and you'll see the left side doesn't quite line up. So I'm actually going to increase the left amount on all of these. Maybe we'll go 80. 80. And 80. And if you see, the H starts a little bit more to the right than the I does, and the S starts even more to the left. So instead of moving those back, we're just going to create a mat on each one of these. So we'll draw a new shape. And we can make this any color. Maybe I'll just make it a gray and no stroke. And then I'm going to hit enter and call this mat. And I'm going to bring it above each one of our SmartREKTs. So I'm going to Control D, I believe Command D on the Mac. And now we have our mats on top of each one of these SmartREKTs. We can turn our mats off. And click all of our SmartREKTs and set the track mat to alpha inverted. Okay, so now we have a nice hard edge on the left-hand side because we're using these mats that we've created. So I'm going to collapse everything down, and this is working pretty well. The one problem that we're going to run into is if I go back here and delete our third line of text, we now have this. And what this is it's the borders that we've created. So the value of the size is 0, but then it's adding 40 to the border. So we need to figure out a way to take that away. I'm going to hit T to bring up the opacity of line 3's SmartREKT, and I'm going to Alt click. Then I'm going to open up the source text of line 3 and copy what we've already typed in there. And I'm going to paste it here. So you see what this is doing is creating an array and splitting at each time we've returned it, okay? And then it's then pulling the number 2, which is the third entry in our array. I'm going to delete that number 2, and then I'm going to create a variable by typing A equals. Okay, so now A is just equal to the name of our array. Now I'm going to type a semicolon, go to the next line, and type in if parentheses A dot length is less than 3, then I'm going to type a curly bracket, and I'm going to type 0. Close my curly bracket, which came up down here. Close my curly bracket, else, open curly bracket, 100, semicolon, close the curly bracket, and one more semicolon. This is how I typically write an if-then statement. So we still see this, but if I come to our input text and type delete, you'll see that we had some sort of characters down here. So what this is doing, this is an if-then statement saying that if the length of our array is less than 3, then the opacity is 0. Otherwise, it's 100. So there were 3 entries in our array, okay? And if the third item is present, which would be the third line, of course, we want the opacity of our SmartREKT to be 100%. But if it's only 2 lines of text, we want that to go to 0. So that's what this is saying. Now we're going to copy and paste that to our other SmartREKTs. So T to bring up the opacity, Alt-click, paste. We're going to change this to 2. And change this to 1. Okay. So you'll see this is working pretty well. And if you got to make sure that your return key is, there's no characters down here. So as long as there's no characters to return to a new line, that will go away. Now it looks like if we didn't have anything typed, there would be a box here because we can't go to a 0 line, but in this case, we're always going to have text. And if we make these all caps here, you'll see that, the pseudo all caps right here, you'll see that it doesn't update. So one thing we could do if we wanted to make a more advanced tutorial would be that we could link the font sizes, font weights. We could lead this top line more, and we could have these lines automatically scale. So that's not something we'll go into today, but if it is something you're interested in, drop a comment in the comment section on YouTube, and I will look at doing that tutorial. I hope this was helpful for you guys. I'm Brandon Donor from BDVFX, and thanks for watching.